what kind of jobs are available to researchers outside of academia, what we can find is this figure in which here there are only professional careers outside of academia. So the ones in academia are not taken into account here. And what we can see is that PhD holders, the majority of them outside of academia, can be found in life science and pharmaceuticals. There are others working in education, also in public administration, but we have some of them working in a field that they call general manufacturing, also in the charity and third sectors, in publishing, but there are a big group here in other sectors that are not specified. If we go to the list of careers that they already put in this website, what we can see is that the first ones are related somehow to research, but as we go on with the list, there are a lot of them: communications, engineering, health, teaching, ICT, journalism, law, engineering professional, health professional, journalist or media professional, law professional, public science engagement, that are not directly related to research. So if we analyze which is the career that has been structured after the PhD for the European Union, it's only the European research careers. It has been structured in 4 different levels. And the first 2, maybe we can associate not only with academia, but with other positions outside of academia. But if we go to the last 2, that are the most advanced ones, are clearly some professional levels just related with academia. But here I highlighted 3 facts that we can extract from the literature about the career trajectories of PhD graduates. The first one is that the mobility across sectors after the first postgraduate job is low. This means that once after finishing the PhD we get a position, it's very strange to change the sector in which we are working. The second one, it's important because it says that PhD candidates that collaborate with industry during the PhD acquire broader competencies and they are more attractive for private sector's employers. So it seems that they have more possibilities to find a job outside of academia. And in fact, the last fact that I wanted to highlight here is that firms recruit graduates that have industry-relevant competencies in addition to the academic knowledge. So this makes clear that we need to develop transversal skills. And in fact, in the recent years, it has been a big emphasis placed upon the development of these transversal skills within PhD programs. But which kind of transversal skills we should focus on? In fact, it has been a growing pressure to those entrepreneurial skills or knowledge transfer skills for PhD candidates. But we should not forget also about research management, personal effectiveness, communication skills, team working, also networking skills, and of course, career management. Before I was attending the talk of Lynn McAlpine, and one of the things that she said is that we should ensure that the PhD, that we are preparing our future professional career at the moment that we are starting and that we are developing our PhD. And this is a very good reflection. And in fact, in the training programs that we are developing for PhD candidates, we are working on this thing. So if we go to the which competencies or qualifications involve a PhD, we should go to the Dublin descriptors that they will define which are those competencies. But if we go through them, we see that they are more generalistic, that they are complex ideas. So maybe what we can do is we can extract some keywords that will orient us on which transversal skills we should focus on. And for instance, here we have understanding a field of study, a mastery of skills and methods of the research associated with that field, that a PhD holder should be able to conceive, design, implement, and adapt a research process with scholarly integrity, that we should be able to develop original research that deserves publication, that we should be able to develop critical analysis, evaluation, and synthesis of new and complex ideas, that we should be able to communicate with peers, but not only with peers, also with the larger scholarly community, and of course with the society in general, okay? And that we should also be able to promote technological, social, and cultural advancement in this knowledge-based society. So as you see, they are too complex. If we go again to Euraccess, they identified some of the skills that are important for employers. So then maybe what we can do is we can focus on that. And in fact, they conducted a research in which they compared those skills that researchers believe that they are good at with the skills that the employers are demanding. And the good thing, the good news here, are that these skills, this list of skills coincide. So the skills that we are already developing as researchers are the ones that the employers are requiring. Maybe they are not in the same order, but they are there, okay? But if we go for other models, for instance, we have the Researcher Development Framework that was developed by Vitae UK in 2010. Here, they analyzed 63 different transversal skills that they divided in 4 domains. Those domains include knowledge and intellectual activities, personal effectiveness, research governance and organization, and also engagement, influence, and impact. And in fact, if you read in detail this Researcher Development Framework, it's not only valid for PhD candidates, it's also valid for researchers in any stage of their careers, because as higher as you go in the career of a researcher, you will need a higher mastery degree on this kind of transversal skills, okay? This morning, I also learned that Eurodoc has developed also a transferable skills model. In here, they defined 59 different transversal skills that they grouped in 9 different domains. And here we have the ones that concern more research, but there is a group important for career development. Okay, there are all others that are related with digital skills, communication, cognitive skills, interpersonal skills, that there is something that the employers are demanding substantially, but also related with teaching and supervision, entrepreneurship, and also mobility. But again, any of those models tell us if those transversal skills are universal for any career path that we can follow as PhD holders or not. And in fact, if we go back again to Euraccess, here in the career development section, they identified 14 different sectors that hire PhD holders. So there is an opportunity for PhD holders going to work on these different sectors. We have from agriculture and forestry sectors, we have charity, we have management, we have finances, we have health, and up to 14 of them. You can go to the webpage and you can analyze them one by one. And the good thing of this analysis is that they identified which are the required skills for each one of those sectors. I did the job for you. I will not show the whole picture, but a short picture of what is happening. They define it up to 56 different transversal skills in those 14 sectors. Here you have the transversal skills that they define it. Here we have the different sectors in which they identified these transversal skills. But one of the shocking things when we perform this exercise is that, as you can see here, the transversal skills are not common for all the sectors. So they are sectors that prefer one set of skills than others. There are some of them that seems to be specific of these sectors, and there are others that are more transversal among sectors. But at least there is some work in tailoring, which are the transversal skills training programs that we are developing at universities that should be made according to the professional aspirations of our PhD candidates. So this takes me to the last part of my presentation, in which I wanted to reflect about these training programs for transversal skills. First, they should be incorporated in the institution. They should be integrated in the institution. They should have institutional support. And this is happening for most of the universities, although in most of them, I have been working in several universities in Spain. I know also some universities in Europe and in Latin America. And most of them, what they are doing is that they are placing this responsibility on defining which transversal skills to train about to the different doctorate programs. But this takes to another point, that is the sustainability of the training programs and securing the resources for these training programs. We have seen that we should train between 55 and 60 something transversal skills. For a university like mine, University Rovira i Virgili is a quite small university. We have 14,000 students and only 1,200 PhD candidates. So having or establishing 60 something training programs for every one of those transversal skills, it's really a big effort. So we should be careful about which ones are we developing and how we are developing them. Because another thing that we have to take into account is the quality of these training programs. It's not only that we should focus our attention on the PhD candidates. As I said before, we believe in this philosophy that we should work in a 360 degrees area, in which also we should make supervisors aware of the importance of these training transversal skills programs. And this, for instance, in Spain, it's crucial because now we reduce the time for the development of a doctoral thesis to 3 years. Then if you go and you tell the doctoral supervisors, look, part of the time of these 3 years, the candidates should devote part of this time to training on their transversal skills. What normally the answer that we get from them is, look, we don't have time to do the research involved in the PhD program, plus the training programs about transversal skills. So we should make a big effort making them aware of the importance of these training programs. And not only this, also the support staff that it's interacting with our PhD candidates, because they can also work in advising, in giving support, in orienting our PhD candidates. So they should also be aware of these training programs. And this takes me to the last point, that is that we need a cooperation among stakeholders. And when I'm speaking about the stakeholders, I'm meaning universities, I'm meaning employers, and I'm meaning institutions. Why? As I said, for small universities, maybe for big universities, the situation might be better. But for small universities, having all the resources and trying to sustain these training programs is difficult, because we don't have all the expertise, all the resources needed for these training programs. But then if we mancomunate resources among universities, what we can do is each university can develop 5, 10 training programs about transversal skills, and we can share the resources among universities. So we are giving for each case the best of every single university. And also, we should not forget that for us that have been working all the time in academia, knowing which are the skills and how they want them to be trained by the employers, it's somehow difficult. So why not involving also the employers in this training program about transversal skills? And after these reflections, it's just the conclusions, three main points. The first, as we have seen, transversal skills are not universal for all professional paths for doctorate holders. So we need to make a big reflection on which transversal skills we should focus on. And the first who should do this reflection are the doctoral candidates. And this is the second point. The doctoral candidates by themselves should make a self-reflection about, first, what they want to do after the PhD, and second, prepare for that during the PhD. So then you can tune your transversal skills training program to the way in which you want for this career that you want to follow after the PhD. And finally, the third point is that this, I think, is crucial, the cooperation among stakeholders, universities, employers, institutions, that is needed to undertake correctly transversal skills training for doctoral candidates. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Joan Josep. Very clear your presentation. I think you've raised many issues. Yeah, let's see if we have time to discuss them. So there's a question from Matthew. You refer to the Eurodoc also map of transversal skills. He's saying, thank you for your talk, Joan. What's your perception of so-called innovation ecosystems, such as that offered by the PhD Hub? These doctoral training structures could aid in acquiring the right relevant transferable skill set for the wider labor market. What do you think about that?
Well, this is one of the things that puzzled us the most when we were doing this analysis, because according to Euraccess, and according also to some conversations that we had with some employers, that it seems that innovation is not one of the big things that they are looking for PhD candidates. And this is something that it's puzzling, because we believe that one of our big values is just innovation, that we are this capacity of thinking out of the box to innovate. But this is not something that the employers are looking for. So maybe we are putting the efforts in not the correct things. So it needs a deeper reflection, huh? But it's something that we should take into account.
Yeah, that's an interesting issue, which is, I think, related to another one that Pamela asked into the chat. So she says, how we can assess or measure competences in students? Is there an instrument, a strategy, or tool to assess skills?
I think it's not easy. It's not easy, because first we should rely on a self-assessment from the PhD candidates. They are the best ones who can tell us which are the mastery on the different training or the different transversal skills. Okay, and in fact, in our training programs with our PhD candidates, one of the exercises that we are doing, we are taking the research development framework wheel. Okay, and we just focus on one of the domains, and we ask our PhD candidates to analyze which is the degree of mastery in every one of the transversal skills in that particular domain. Okay, we divide it in, I think it's in a scale of 5 levels. Okay, and they can define in which level they are at that present moment. But then we make them to reflect on how to improve those particular transversal skills in which they feel weak. Okay, so at the end, it's a self-reflection from the candidates that helps them to define which should be the training program for the future until arriving to what they want to do. But of course, first, And the first question that should be answered is, what do you want to do after your PhD? And this is not an easy question to answer.
Yeah, there are more questions, but I can't resist, because I think what you said now connects with how do we assess also doctoral candidates, not just how do we assess transversal skills, but the degree itself. So if it's only based on an output, which is the thesis, and a written output. So I don't know if it's time to rethink a little bit more. How do we incorporate these transversal skills into the general assessment of a PhD candidate? Because otherwise it's a kind of tricky, you know, there are those transversal skills useful for you after the PhD, but then you will obtain the degree only based on this output, which is a very typified one, and in some cases not it's not an evidence of transfer or transversal skills, for example.
Well, in fact, Matthew was reflecting also on that in his talk this morning, exactly. Because he was talking about the recognition of these transferable skills. And in fact, transferable skills or competencies, they appeared here in Europe. In the US, they appeared a long time ago, but here in Europe, after the reformation of the higher education during the Bologna process. This was 1999, 21 years from now. And the first levels that developed these transversal skills were the bachelor's, then we arrived to the master's, now we're arriving to the PhD programs. And if you look at the recognition of the transversal skills for bachelor level, it's still a minority, because we still rely on the marks for the different subjects, but we don't account in these mark records for the students what they perform about the transversal skills. We are starting to do now here in our university. It's a pilot program that will start this year. Okay, so at least we are starting 21 years after with the bachelor's. So at some point, I think that we will also get on this point with the PhD programs. And I hope that it will not take 21 years more, okay? But it's true that first, the recognition of the transversal skills is something pending that we have to do. And second is how the transversal skill training programs have been introduced in the universities. It's okay, the doctoral schools are aware that we should do that because there are some laws that they are telling us to do that. But then it's okay, how we do that and how do we think about these programs. And normally what is happening is that, okay, we leave freedom to the PhD programs to do as they consider. But the problem is that the PhD programs did not reflect about that. And it's that, okay, there are some training programs that we have to fulfill. Which are the training programs that the university is offering that we can use? Okay, so we take them. But we need a deeper reflection about which transversal skills we should focus on and how to train them.
Yeah, many things. Yeah, there is many questions too. So what do you think from Mauricio about programs like Norwegian or in Finland that offers work at the same time of being in the PhD or postdoc? Is it a way to begin a career in the academia, or this is not a good way?
No, it's it depends if you want to work on academia or outside of academia. If you want to work outside of academia, I think that it's the most wonderful opportunity that you can have. And in fact, It's here in Spain, we have also this program of industrial doctorates in which you are doing your thesis between the company and the university, half time on each, okay? And then you have this overview about how is developing research for the private sector, which are the skills that they are requiring, because they will train you about these skills, okay? So for me, it's a wonderful opportunity if you can have this this possibility of doing your PhD and at the same time being involved with the private sector. Yes.
Yeah, this connects to another question that Julia raised. It's related to the if it's one important factor for PhD from the private sector, networking, referrals from industry that gives them an advantage to get a job in industry, or it's mainly a difference in skills?
Well, here again I go back to one idea that Matthew has told us this morning. That is that most of the careers outside of academia for PhD holders happened because of proactivity, and this is true. I will put you an example. For instance, here in Catalonia, the tourism sector, it's a strong sector, okay? But does the tourism sector need PhD holders? Do they appoint PhD holders? In principle, one should think, why not? It's not necessary. But I will put one example of proactivity with one of our PhD candidates and one of our supervisors here. What they decided is, instead of publishing or presenting the results in academic conferences, what they did, they attended professional conferences about tourism. In that case, it was a case in which they were developing research analyzing the impact of the training, the entertainment programs in long-term flights, like the ones, the intercontinental, etc. So what happened is that 6 months before finishing the PhD candidate had a position in the private sector related to tourism. So whenever you do these proactivity actions, at the end, you increase your chances to get a job outside of academia.
Yeah, this is connected with another question from Lucy. How and in what platforms do you suggest that the private sector players and employers should engage with academia better? You put an example, but probably this is much more specific.
It's difficult to say because there are no platforms of connection between the academy and the private sector, and we should work on that. In fact, we are working on a program, on a project, trying to develop these paths, this connection between the industry and the academia. And it's not easy. I remember the first time that we tried to convince, because we are not working directly with individual companies, but we try to work with the associations of companies, okay? Because then it's easier to make the message to arrive to the final employers, okay? And the first thing that they told us, maybe it's particular for the Spanish university system, but I think it's common for Europe, is that our educational system is too rigid, and that they cannot introduce the flexibility about the training that they require for the companies. And it's true, because for instance, now we can focus on, as Matthew was asking before, on innovation, okay? But maybe in 2 years or 3 years from now, the private sector considers that it's better to have flexibility than innovation. But since our system is already built on training these particular transversal skills, to move them, it's very rigid, it's very difficult. So from one side, we have to work on establishing these paths or these connections between academia and industry. And from the other side, especially for us as academia, we should work on the flexibility of our training programs to fit with the needs of the private sector.
Mm-hmm. And this is, I guess, it's also different depending on disciplines. So it's not the same in social sciences, for example, how to connect, how to create its platforms, or in engineering, that in some cases the channels are there, maybe not platforms, but channels of cooperation have already created.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
There's another question here. So it's yeah, like a comment more than a question. So saying from Anne, in Luxembourg, we have in the law, and says 5 out of the 20 credits, European credits, to get the PhD title, which need to be acquired in transversal skills. I think we don't have here requirement for a number of ECTS, but just no. We ask for having transversal skills, like in general.
In fact, in the Spanish system, what we have is that the PhD candidates need to justify that they have followed training programs. I don't remember exactly. It's something like 150 or 200 hours during the whole PhD. But in these training programs, you can fit attending conferences, you can fit preparing papers, you can fit everything. So it's not specific about transversal skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is another question from Rosalie. Something we often get during the PhD studies is a feeling of lack of guidance from university. She says, thus these transferable skills are something that needs to be addressed from the beginning, like you already said. So maybe it should be part of the program's structure to do some sort of career advice. So I would link this with something that you haven't mentioned, but I'm sure it's in your program and in your heads and in your agenda, which is, well, we need also to train supervisors about the importance and the role that these transversal skills play into the doctoral students' development, not just after, but during also the PhD.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Here, connecting with the last question that you put to us is, I already mentioned these 360-degree training programs, okay? And we should make, of course, doctoral supervisors aware of the importance of the transversal skills. But then if we want them to orient on which are the most important transversal skills that a particular doctoral candidate should follow, we need to give them the information about all these transversal skills program and which are the ones that are most required by private sector. Okay, so this is something that we have to work on. We are starting in our PhD, in our training programs for supervisors, we are commenting this. But it's true that in an advanced session for training for PhD supervisors, we included these career paths for PhD candidates. And the pilot proof was done here at our university. And there were only 2 supervisors that were interested in this particular training program. So then we need to make a lot of pedagogy in this field to make aware the supervisors of the importance of this. And answering the question that was raised about the lack of guidance in the university. In our university, we have this training program for PhD candidates that they should take this PhD program, this training program during the first year of the doctorate, in which the first thing that we do is we ask several questions to them. The first one is, why are you doing a PhD? And the second one is, what do you want to do after your PhD? And once we have reflected on that, then we passed and we start to define the careers that you can follow as PhD holder after your PhD, but that you should start from the 0 day that you start your PhD. You should start planning your professional career after. And for this, we make not an orientation, I would say, but at least we present the different transversal skills that we can have, and then we leave the doctoral candidates to choose the ones that they should focus on.
So thank you. That was interesting. So many things that are inspiring. I was just thinking that we cannot create channels if ourselves, so the researchers, we do not cooperate with companies and industries. If we don't have these, shared projects or projects that are not just for society but with society and all these things. So it's quite difficult to create this culture of working together. But that's many layers here. So thank you very much. We are on time. That was a very interesting session. Thanks to all participants and the questions. And I think we are done. So we invite you all, the participants, to attend in 15 minutes another session. That's the last one for today, where Gabriela from Mexico will help us to reflect on building and sustaining satisfactory supervision relationship, which is something that we have been surfing all the day. So it's so important too. So thank you very much, Josep.
Thank you very much, Montserrat. It was a pleasure for me.
Okay, for us too.
Thank you.